stands to lose with some of this stuff, and certainly with the record sales declining as they have. But he seemed pretty optimistic that it's not that far around in the future that they're going to iron it all out, and people will be getting properly paid for this, because quite frankly, the music business is it's been hurt so badly.
Right.
It's been awful for it, and especially for artists and even labels and you name it. It's just been a mess. So I hope they fix it, because I don't really think that. I mean, if they don't, I don't see how people would eventually continue making music, because it costs money to make a product.
Right, sure.
This isn't something you just are churning out in the middle of the world here in this digital kind of limbo world. It takes effort, and it costs money to do this, even if at the most simplistic of ways, home studio, and you can do things like that, and it's great, and just kind of put it on to stream, and it's great. But at some point, if you're not earning something for it, it's just a big nothingness, and that's a drag. So
definitely.
I see royalties, and I get statements, and believe me, sometimes it's a drag when you see like 2 cents and 3
Right.
cents. It's like, okay, great. So, and I know that it should be bigger than that. It should be, because there's definitely lots of ways that people are able to access music, and I know they're listening to my music. Maybe not on Spotify, the Anthrax records, but in
Right.
other ways.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I hope they fix it and they work it out, and it would be nice.
Yeah, me too. Armored Saint and so many other bands were a part of that LA metal scene, the early LA metal scene back in the 1980s, and a lot of times when we think of that scene, we think of Rad and Motley Crue, but you guys were there too. And I was wondering if you have any memories that you could share from that scene back in the day before it kind of blew up and there were just, millions of kids coming in from all over the country, when it was a little more intimate, maybe back in the very early 80s. What was the scene like in general terms?
Well, it was awesome. It was. I'm super happy to be associated with that time, because I think it was a real special time in heavy metal, and LA in the 82, 83, 84, at least when we were a club band, was awesome. We played with a lot of amazing bands who went on. Most of them had record deals, and most of them did well with their record deals. Everyone from Rat, like you said, to Great White, to Quiet Riot, to Steeler, to Black and Blue. There's countless bands. Malice. I mean, almost everybody that came through LA in some way or another had a record deal and had some kind of fame. Obviously, some were bigger than others, of course, but it was great. We were part of that scene, and even though most of our influence was a little bit heavier and a little bit more based on European bands that we really were inspired by at the time, we still were in LA, and we still were proud to be from LA, and we played with all those bands, and all those bands and us got along very well, and we had great shows together, and we played the Troubadour countless times. That was still to this day is one of my favorite clubs in LA. The Country Club, which was out in the Valley, that had had amazing shows, which I actually saw Anthrax playing with Raven, with Neil Turbin back in 84, 83. We played there with Metallica, right when Kill 'Em All was released. Just so many people, so many bands, so many cool venues, the Roxy. We used to make our own flyers. I used to have a job at the home office at Public Storage, the main office of all the public storage sites. And so I had access to this really giant Xerox machine at the time, and we would just make, I probably could get, well, that's not going to matter now, of course, right. But we'd make thousands of flyers, for all our shows. And Dave Pritchard, he was such an awesome artist as well as a great guitar player, and he would make these incredible flyers with pictures on it that had drawings at the same time. They were just really weird and unusual, especially for the flyers that were made at the time by other bands. And we would just pass them out everywhere, and we were all into doing that. And there's plenty of times that we went to the Troubadour where you parked across the street where most people did to go to the Troubadour. And there was times where we would go into that parking garage and everyone was partying in there.
Wow.
There was times where we would just not even go to the gig.
Yeah.
It wasn't our gig. It was like somebody else's gig. But we, and our objective was to pass out flyers and to kind of, do some schmoozing or whatever. And, we were partying and having a great time. And there was times we didn't even make it into the club. We just hang it in the parking garage.
Wow.
So I have fond memories of that. And
cool.
It was a great time. It was an awesome time. And sometimes I think Armored Saints most organic circumstances when we were our own manager and we were our own band, and before, we were with Chrysalis Records, and, just kind of our world. And it's, then of course, you get a record deal and you get an agent and you get all these things. And, of course, those are pivotal moments and big steps in your life. But sometimes I think when we had it just ourselves, it was probably the best as far as it just being the truest.
Right.
So.
Cool. Great stuff. One last question for you. You mentioned Dave, and of course you lost Dave, sadly, back in, I think, 1990 to leukemia, and Jeff Duncan joined after that. But really, that's the only lineup change you've ever had. And how do you guys make it work? How do you stay together for so long? I mean, there's so many bands out there now where you have the drummer is the only guy, or there's one person in the band.
Yeah.
What makes it work with you guys?
Well, Phil did leave after Delirious Nomad. He was part of the writing process, and then after that record was out during the recording, he left. And then, of course, Phil came back on Symbol. And Jeff was part of the writing process of Symbol, and then kind of left, and then came back. And so that was a little bit of a weird area as far as his early associations with Armored Saint, although Jeff played in Odin, and Odin opened for Armored Saint as a Troubadour in 1983 on countless occasions, as well as Perkins Powell. So we were bonding with Jeff back then too. But the four guys in Armored Saint, Jeff, Phil, and Gonzo, who are of course brothers, and myself and Joey, we grew up in about a quarter-mile radius from one another in a little town in East LA called El Sereno, and here in Los Angeles. And we were friends and going to elementary school when we were like 8 and 9 years old.
Wow.
And so our relationship is over 40 years together as just friends beyond the band. And I do find it to be a real awesome circumstance that we are the same guys. I mean, obviously Dave is the one exception, and we miss Dave, and I always feel like his presence is there all the time anyway. And if he was there, then we would have to go for the Outlaws Maiden vibe and have 3 guitar players, because it would just be right. But of course, he died a long time ago. But I think that's one of the beautiful aspects of Armored Saint. It is the same guys. It's the same dudes who were part of just about every record. And when these songs are played, it's not like, I can learn that song. It's, I know that song. I'm part of that song, and it's pretty rare, especially for a band that has been around as long as we have. We have that, it's the same guys, and I dig that. I think it's just it's a beautiful thing. So, I don't know. It's funny. We get along probably better now than we ever did. Maybe it's a sign of maturity or just our old age.
Right.
But I think everyone respects everybody else in their space, and we kind of know our roles, and everybody kind of just deals with that in the proper way. And Armored Saint, it's the same dudes. It really is. So it's cool. I think that's one of the greatest aspects of the band.
Cool, absolutely. And on that note, we'll wrap things up. John, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, take care.
All right, have a nice night.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.